Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Melanin Margin, the weekly chat show where conversations about race are never off the table. We're your hosts, Quaviondre Williams.
And Daquon Wilson.
So let's get into this week's conversation. What's hot on the table this week? In an article from Black Enterprise, we learned that admissions experts Timothy L. Fields and Shareem Herdun Brown are teaming up to start conversation about the college admissions landscape for Black families. In their new book titled The Black Family's Guide to College Admissions, the two address, quote, the needs and inequities of Black families in the college application process, specifically those that are often ignored by school counselors or other resources, end quote. Fields, who serves as a senior associate dean of admissions at Emory University, and Herndon Brown, who founded the independent admissions consulting company Strategic Admissions LLC, hope that the book will, quote, act as a resource shining a light on everything from the current social justice movement and the cultural and educational credibility of historically Black colleges and universities to financial aid and athletic recruitment, and is also for school counselors and educators who are seeking more insight with the goal of amplifying diversity, equity, and inclusivity. In an interview, Fields stated, quote, we are not looking to change school counseling as we feel most do a pretty excellent job, but rather provide a resource to help educators and families better support students in this process and understand their options. So, Daquon, what was your experience with college admissions?
I think we talked about this a little bit on this podcast before, but college admission season was one of the most stressful periods of my life. It was a wild journey for me because I didn't have a lot of knowledge about it going in, and I had to learn along the way. My parents didn't go off to a 4-year college. And my brothers did go to college. My older brothers did go to college, but they went to colleges in state, and the process to getting into those colleges were a lot different than the process of the colleges that I was applying to. So it felt like I was diving headfirst into the water and have no type of flotation device to help me out. And it was exacerbated because even as I was like trying to get these applications done and do this and that to like make sure I have a good application, I also had to spend so much time being a guidance counselor because our guidance counselor, had to deal with a lot of different things that she didn't necessarily have time to focus on me with my applications. And so there'll be times I would be in her office just like trying to get an application done, which she didn't know how to do, and I had to walk her through how to do it. And then another student would come in and need something, and it just became a process that was so long and laborious that it was like I felt like, okay, I have to go and learn all of these different things so that I know everything I can about the college admission process. And like I literally had people who were also at my school coming to me asking me about college things instead of our guidance counselor. So it was really a struggle, and I think that that is kind of how they talked about one of the challenges for equity and inclusion in the college admissions process is a lot of times, when you talk about like Black and brown schools and, lower income schools, they are either underfunded or understaffed, or they don't necessarily have all the resources in place to make that college application process easy for students. So I was really trying to keep my head up in the sea that I didn't really know what was going on.
Yeah, I think for me, my process was absolutely horrendous. I think that when you step into college, you are expected to figure it all out and fast. I mean, if you're lucky, someone in your household can help guide you and show you the way, the ins and outs, the do's and don'ts. However, not all of us are lucky enough to have that type of assistance available. I mean, many of the mistakes I made were because I didn't really have much guidance about how to avoid them. I think one of the biggest lies you're told growing up is that if you go to school, with straight A's, you will get a full ride scholarship to college immediately. And I fully believed that growing up, so much so that I spent, much of my early years cramped up in the room, studying consistently, trying to make, and maintain my 4.0 GPA. And while straight A's definitely can widen your range of scholarships to apply to, most of them only kind of require a 3.0 or better to qualify. Another thing they don't tell you is that many of the full ride scholarships require you to have been a part of some extracurricular activities or have done several hours of volunteer work. Not to mention the fact that just about every single one of them requires you to have top tier level essay writing skills. So if you hate writing, these scholarships say, prepare to be sick of me. There's also the college admissions fees, out of state versus in state tuition, room and board, technical versus four-year institutions. I mean, it just goes on and on. I mean, one of the most trying aspects of admission, for me at least, wasn't the waiting or rejection or acceptance. It was the trying to get settled in, trying to figure out what classes I needed to start with, learning, who was the good or bad professors were, and being vigilant about the add or drop period. I mean, understanding my class schedules and how to work around it with my job. I mean, and let's say that you were lucky enough to get scholarships. Do not expect financial aid to explain any of it to you, because they're not really financial aid. They're just, the school finance office. Many of them aren't aiding you in shit, and they do not give a fuck about you at all, because they've got hundreds of other students to get situated in addition to you. If there is any advice I could give, once you get a scholarship or qualify for something automatically based on your income, ask for a copy of the guidelines of that scholarship, because you don't know what they require for you to continue receiving it, and they will take it away from you and snatch it back with no availability to get it back. And then there's the refunds process. See, I thought that I had to spend all the money I had for my bookstore allowance in the school store, or it would just go away. No one explained to me that for some scholarships, the excess is refunded back to you. And thank God I figured that one out pretty quickly. So let's say you've gone through all of that. You think that you're done until that first day of class. And I would tell anyone that's about to go to college to wait until the first day of class before buying your books, because way too many professors tell you that you don't need it on the first day. But if you're a planner like I am, and you just want to give and want to have these books just in case, just be very careful, because many of the books are available online or in person for renting, or even better, your professor just wants you to purchase the lab code because it gives you a free online copy of the textbook, oftentimes at a cheaper rate. But if you buy it from the bookstore and it's just in one of those 3-ring binder packets, do not break the seal until you know for a fact that your class requires the book. Most school bookstores do not offer a refund for those 3-ring binder versions of the textbook once the seal is broken. And there are so many other little tidbits that I wish I knew before going to college. But Daquon, what is some advice that you wish you knew back then?
I think, like you said, financial aid is not financial aid. They are just finance. Because there would be times when I'm like, how is this helping me? So one thing that I had to learn quickly in college in terms of like the financial aid process was that there are a lot of colleges that will bloat your financial aid package with all types of the loans. And I literally had a situation where I was talking to my financial aid officer, and there was like scholarships that I didn't get that I needed to like get taken off of my financial aid package so that it reflected the scholarships that I did get. And when I noticed that change happened, it was like, okay, these grants went down, these things went down, but the loans went up. And I was like, So why are you giving me more loans instead of just like leaving the grants that you gave me that are supposed to be for financial need alone? And it was like, oh, this is how I know this is a scam. Like financial aid will really be out there, and you try to call them and you can't get an answer, and like
Never.
somebody's always out to lunch.
Yeah.
They're out to lunch from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. You got to catch them at 9 a.m. You got to catch them at like 4:30 p.m. if you're lucky. But I also think that really understanding not only where your classes are, but how far it is to get from one class to
To
another.
the next.
You got to
Yeah.
do that walk at least 1 or 2 times before you even have your first day of class. Because there have been so many times my freshman year where I was like, oh, I can make this walk. First day of class happens, I'm like, never again. Immediately drop that class because it's not happening every single day. I'm walking into class, huffing and puffing up the stairs, sweating because I also went to college in Georgia. That Georgia heat,
I
that
nothing to
first
play
day of
with.
during the summer ain't nothing to play with. So really take your time to learn about your financial aid office, the school's finance department. Learn
Exactly. Yeah.
about where your classes are, their locations, your professors. And one of the biggest things that I learned is like there are some professors who are the realist, and you need to find them and take as many classes with them as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have had professors where I would go to office hours and they'd literally be like, oh, you need help with this essay? Here's this book. Here's
Mm-hmm.
this book. Like they're literally giving me books to read that's perfect for the essay. They're giving me all different types of advice and talking me through, certain articles or things to research that would help me. And so go to those office hours. Like I'm an introvert. I don't like talking to people, but I promise you, take that time to go talk to your professors and get to know the ones who are really on your side because they will definitely help you out.
Yeah, and I think that one of the best tools I had was going to rate my professor. I was my first semester, I fucked up bad because I was like, who the fuck is all these people? They was just not giving. I mean, I made it through, but I was like, this is just not it. And I think that with rate my professor, it's a fine line you got to walk with it because it's like there's some people who are just mad because they didn't do shit in the class and then you get an A automatically. So you kind of got to work your way through it. But I always try to look for the ones that are at least 4 stars or 3 to 4 stars or better, and like look and read the fucking reviews all the way through because you can kind of see and kind of judge, okay, this person's really good, this person is kind of whatever, because you'd be surprised at how many 1 star professors earn that 1 star. And so I think that, and another thing that I think is a really, really big one is realizing, unfortunately, when you go to college, you really are on your own. Like as far as where everything goes, unless you have a really good, family support system, or like you said, you had parents who went to those universities and stuff like that who know the ins and outs. Because I think that one of the hardest things that I had to kind of the biggest, shocks for me was that there was nobody who was, working with you to make sure you got what you needed or that you had all the things that you needed. So there was sometimes where I would check, my refund balance, and I'm kind of like, wait a minute, something is wrong here. My money is it's and I owe y'all something, and I would have to go to the financial aid office and like, oh yeah, you're missing a tax return from 2015 or some weird ass shit of the tax ABA form or some shit that I was like, why nobody told me? They were kind of like, I don't know, shit. They might have sent you an email or something, and it was very kind of
That's on you.
nonchalant, huh?
They would be like, that's on you.
That's on you. And it's like you don't even realize it because they don't send you information. They don't send you emails. They don't like send you, hey, just so you know, this is coming up. You don't get those kind of things that you do within in high school or middle school or whatever, like where they were, giving you, hey, this is the date, this is due, this is what you're gonna need for this and that and the fourth. A lot of these scholarships and stuff, even when you get them, you still have to go back and recheck to make sure, okay, I got this, I got that, I got this, I got that. Do you need anything else? Are you sure I have everything for this? Okay. And then going with the professors too, I think one of the biggest things that was a big culture shock for me was the fact that in TV shows and movies and shit, they be rolling the class at any time, skipping all the fucking time. Bitch, you missed that class more than 4 times if you want to. Oh, 3, I think it's 3. Oh, you're done. You
Dropped
withdrawn.
immediately.
Dropped. Gone. Here we go. Withdrawal fails sometimes too. If the professor's being real petty. So like I was like, oh damn. So I can't just roll up in when I want to, and they do late. They take attendance. They mark you late and shit. This it is if when you was in high school, if you going to college now, understand it. Have that same mindset of I need to be on class on time. I need to not miss as many days as possible because some colleges only have what is it called? I think like 4 a certain amount of unexcused absences, and after that you're done. Like you're done. So it's
Right. And some don't even differentiate. It's you have 4 absences, excused or unexcused. Period.
exactly.
In those classes, you can't play with your attendance.
Or even with some of the professors that I've met who have been, there was one professor, a theater professor, who was like, when we took one of the girls, her grandfather had passed away, and she was like, I can't make it to the final exam, so I told him that I need to retake my. Can you tell him that I need to retake my exam? And so I told the professor, I was like, hey, X, Y, and Z just texted me. She said her grandfather that she's going to be here for the exam. And he was like, oh well, I don't do retakes. Sir, what? He was like, I don't do. She had to go to the dean to get him to give her a retake. And I was like, yeah, some of these teachers ain't shit. Like some of these professors ain't shit.
Right. If there is also specifically to my Black people who go to PWIs, predominantly white institutions, let me tell you the best advice I ever gotten. A closed mouth don't get fed. You need to be able to advocate for yourself in a lot of these situations because you're not going to have an advocate. So in that situation, like the student who's had, their parent or grandparent or whatever, your relative literally died and you had to miss, you need to be able to advocate for yourself to that professor. If they don't do nothing about it, take it to that department head. If they don't do nothing about it, take it to the dean. You need to be able to advocate for yourself because there was been so many situations throughout my time in college where it was just like, damn, like, is there something wrong with me? Like, am I just like missing out? Like,
Yeah.
am I the stupid one? And
No.
I'm like, no.
Daquon.
Listen, a lot of these systems have not been made with you in mind. And so you got to make sure that you're top of mind for all of these different administrators and professors and faculty members who are navigating these systems. You need to make sure, even if this institution didn't have you in mind, you are going to be top of mind for everybody and advocate for yourself.
Bitch, you better say that. You better say it.